Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. President Arshande Touadera is seeking a third term as general election began today. After a 2023 constitutional change scrapped term limits, however, Touadera is still favored to win over opposition figures Anicet Georges Dologuele and Henry Marie Dondra, with provisional results due on January 5th next year. Britain and Germany have signed a $70 million joint procurement deal to acquire the RCH-155 mobile artillery system, as the UK Defence Ministry said the system can fire 8 rounds per minute, with units to be tested by both the British and German armies. Fresh clashes have been reported in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in Uvira, where M23 rebels have seized the strategic town earlier this month despite a US-brokered peace deal reaffirmed by Kinshasa and Kigali. Congo's army reportedly struck M23 positions with drones at Kalundu port on Lake Tanganyika. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung has appointed conservative politician and former United Future Party lawmaker Lee Jae-hyun as the budget minister, signaling a cross-party move. As Lee Jae-hyun said, she supports the president's goals of economic growth and expanded social welfare. Kosovo is headed to the polls today in its second election of this year, with nationalist Prime Minister Albin Kurti and his Vetevendosje party seeking a majority to end a year-long political deadlock that has paralyzed the parliament. Failure to form a government risks derailing the ratification of $1.2 billion in EU and World Bank loans. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet with US President Donald Trump in Florida's Mar-a-Lago. Key topic of discussion will be Zelensky's 20-point proposal for peace between Russia and Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov has said that European Union troops in Ukraine would be legitimate targets for Russia. Lavrov, without providing evidence, has also accused European politicians of being driven by ambitions in their relations with Kyiv. The United Nations has renewed its call for an immediate ceasefire in Sudan. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has highlighted the humanitarian crisis, with nearly 12 million displaced since the war began. Now for this hour, we start with Middle East. Palestinians have protested against settlements in the occupied West Bank, where Israeli forces have used tear gas to disperse them. This comes as Israeli forces have stormed towns and demolished residential buildings. Palestinian officials have accused Israel of a campaign of displacement in the city, saying the operation was part of a systematic attempt to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from their land. Let's in fact listen to what Palestinian protesters have shared.
من هنا قرر أهالي كفر قدوم وبيت ليد واللجان المقاومة الشعبية والمتضامنين وأهالي طول كرم وقلقيلي بالحضور والاستعداد لإزالة هذه البورة الاستيطانية الإرهابية التي تعمل على عملية الضم الصامت لأراضينا الفلسطينية.
نحن لم نبتعد عن أرضنا، باقين في أرضنا. نقول لهذا الاحتلال: أينما وجدت أيها الاحتلال، أينما وجدت سياستك، أينما وجد هذا القهر، هؤلاء العصابات
والجيش عملها منطقة عسكرية، والمنطقة العسكرية اللي عملها الجيش كانت على المستوطنين وعلى الأهالي أصحاب الأراضي، فتفاجأنا إنه بس على أصحاب الأراضي.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Ms. Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief of Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Good to see you.
Thank you, Shiva.
Thank you. Now looking at this, as Israel expands their territory into where Palestinian citizens still live, what is Israel's responsibility as an occupying force, and these things that dispersing Palestinians from their settlements and occupying West Bank more and more. How do they justify this?
Well, they are illegal settlers. There's two things. There's the outposts, which are set up by Palestinians, and there's the settlements, which are approved under Israeli law. But since Netanyahu came to government, has been in government, and also since October the 7th, 2023, there have been more and more settlers moving there, more and more settlements and outposts approve. Israel, either by the government or by Israelis, are trying to put more and more pressure on Palestinians to move them out of their territory, what is illegally, internationally considered their territory. And Israel seems to be completely flouting international law. It appears to have a total disregard to international law. And there's been no efforts to broker a settlement, an agreement at a bilateral level. So Israel is completely ignoring what international law says, or their reason for doing it, they say, is security. They say that the Palestinians are planning terror attacks or attacks against Jewish settlements, Israel, and so on. And so they say they have to move in, they have to raise down houses and turn them into military centres, as they've done recently, in order to guarantee their own security. But they're also arresting. I think that there's thousands and thousands of Palestinians have been arrested, and some there's absolutely no charge. They're just languishing in Israeli jails. So Israel in this case is acting as a law unto itself, and it's got worse since October the 7th, when Palestinians attacked Israel.
Right. Thank you for shedding light on this background. And what are the political and legal implications of now Palestinian officials accusing Israel of forced displacement and ethnic cleansing in the current international context?
It's a very tricky question. I mean, Israel has suffered massive reputational damage since Gaza and their military action there, despite the fact that they had a horrific terrorist attacks against themselves. And obviously what they're doing, putting masses of pressure and moving in forcibly into the West Bank, is harming their reputation even more. And as I said, it seems that Israel really has scant regard for what the international community says. I mean, it does have America as the big friend, but a major friend on the world stage. But, even Donald Trump isn't happy about it. But it seems
mediation efforts are succeeding or not. What do you think?
I don't think they're necessarily succeeding, as we're seeing. There's still the Israelis are still flouting international law. But I think without these international mediation, the situation could possibly be even worse, because Israel, to some extent, will listen to the United States because it does need their support. So if things get too out of hand, then the right wing will have to restrain itself. So even if the international mediation is not working as a peace-loving person would wish, without that international mediation, the situation would be worse and would deteriorate, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree with you. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Ms. Alison Mutler for joining us today and sharing that insight from Romania. Now we move on to Iran. According to reports, Iranian hackers claim to have hacked the personal mobile phone of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's chief of staff, Zachi Braverman. The Iranian hacker group, Handala, has announced the alleged breach online, saying it gained access to sensitive material and has begun publishing some of the data. The group has also threatened to release more information. Israel's Prime Minister's office says there is currently no indication that Braverman's phone was compromised, but confirmed that a security investigation is underway. Earlier this month, the same group has claimed it hacked former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's phone, a claim Bennett later said was limited to his Telegram account. The latest allegation highlights escalating cyber tensions between Israel and Iran. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Tamir Periente. He's a CTO of truly specialized in deepfake detection in the communication channels, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Mr. Tamir, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. What more can you tell?
Thank you.
Thank you. What more can you tell us about this ongoing claims made by Iranian hackers group?
So two main things I have to say. The first is we don't know yet what really happened. Hacking hackers often try to create chaos, so they say whatever they want, and we can't really be sure what already has exposed. Also, phones usually aren't where their real secrets live, because in sensitive settings, phones are kept out, and officials are trained not to discuss classified topics over messaging. But if I would guess, my guess is that some account of his was exposed, like a Telegram or Gmail or even iCloud account.
Yes, yes, it is still alleged. We don't know yet about this, but what does this alleged cyber attack from Iran suggest about the evolving nature of confrontation between Israel and Iran?
Well, it's something that goes on for years and years. We have our own attacking teams and defensive teams, and they have their hacker groups. It doesn't really say anything besides, I think it's like more of a child play, because they are trying to achieve topics and not really any damage over the state, just personal damage for the ones that are hacking their phones, because as I said before, it's more of trying to get their contact, their photos, make embarrassments over officials, but not really state damage like hackers often do to create a financial crisis or chaos.
So, what technical indicators would cybersecurity investigators look for to verify or disprove the claims that Iran is making that they breached into senior officials' personal mobile device?
So basically they look over footprints of hacking tools. Right now the phone is probably outside of any internet source, so it's offline, and teams are probably going over many of the cloud files, many of the messaging logging systems, and trying to see if there is any indications of something was installed, or if there has been a login to any of his accounts from a different place that it's not his device.
Right, and how does alleged hacks of personal devices, these rather than official systems, how do you think this is changing the threat model for protecting high-level government officials? As you know, you mentioned in your previous answer that the officials are, encouraged not to discuss these things near the phone, and also leave the phone outside of Knesset and stuff. But do you think there has to be other protecting mechanisms to protect these talks?
Not really. Basically, all officials also have, all actually people have to do some more training about phishing attacks, because probably that's how his phone was attacked. It's an iPhone, if I remember correctly, that I read. And so hardware is rarely the target by hacking groups. It's often a large phishing scheme that they try to get people to log into their account for our site. They send you a message saying you should go here because your money or your account was breached. Please type your password, we'll reset it, and then they take the account and they can go through they can generate a token and log in to his account from a different device. And I think it's more of as I said, it's not, we have the regulations and the trainings to not have any sensitive information on the phone, but you should, for your own reputation, protect your phone from being breached by fishing training, I guess.
Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Tamir Periente, and joining us all the way from Tel Aviv. Now we move on to China. China's lithium battery industry is expected to face a sharp slowdown in early 2026. Demand for batteries used in electric vehicles and power networks is likely to drop. Cui Dongshu, Secretary General of China's Passenger Car Association, said sales of green passenger vehicles could fall by at least 30%. He has warned that commercial EV sales will also slump after a year-end surge due to subsidies and tax breaks. Battery makers like CATL and Eve Energy may need to cut production and adjust to market fluctuations. Exports are unlikely to offset the domestic decline. China's lithium battery exports to the UAE rose slightly, but sales to the US fell nearly 10%. Reports say US investment restrictions and policy changes could further affect Chinese manufacturers. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi. He's a defense analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Gigi Dwivedi, for joining us again. Good to see you. Thank you. You know, now looking at this falling exports of China's lithium batteries, do you think this will set a precedent for the maybe move out of green energy in the coming years?
Well, Suma, first and foremost, we need to understand that China is the biggest manufacturer of EV vehicles, almost accounts 58% of the global output, also 40% of the global exports. So it's a very huge market. Now, this trend, which have been anticipated both by China Passenger Car Association and also Cui Dongshu, that in 2026 there would likely to be slump in the lithium batteries and also in the EV car production, and there are a number of reasons for this. Firstly, in China itself, there is a anticipated drop in the demand for EVs, and also globally, other countries are trying to, reduce dependence on China, and they are also starting their own manufacturing of the lithium batteries. So when you take these two issues together, definitely the Chinese domestic market is going to get hit, and because China also has very huge consumption, internal consumption, but nonetheless, while the export may still hold on, but the internal consumption, once it comes down, is definitely going to impact the EV car market, and that's why it has been anticipated that due to this slump, they need to actually recalibrate the production, and maybe the production will have to be cut. But these are the signs or indications for 2026, and they are well founded. I think Chinese will have to prepare to cut down the production of the lithium batteries, because both the demand, external demand, and also the internal slump that is likely to take place, Asuma.
Right. Thank you for highlighting that. And as you mentioned that the policy might need to change, or the revision might become necessary, not just in China. Do you think that other countries will also need to do that? And what political challenges might now Beijing face as subsidies, tax incentives are reduced while domestic demand for electric vehicle also weakens?
Suma, when only last week they were figured out that Chinese exports have been about 5.9% of the GDP. In that, the EVs had contributed hugely. There was 40% of the growth of the EVs. That's what was the contribution to the GDP. But that was primarily the export market. But China has been trying to reorientate its economic policy and encourage the domestic consumption, because Chinese economy primarily is export oriented, and manufacturing contributes to about 24% of the Chinese GDP. So therefore, when they are trying to rehash the policies, they want to encourage the local consumption. But the Chinese economy also slowed down. It only recorded 5% growth last year. So therefore, China will have to recalibrate its policies on the EVs, while its real estate, which had really taken a big hit, is now showing up. But I think they'll have to either increase the subsidies, which is not likely, or they'll have to then slow down the production, local production, but focus more on the growth of exports, so that overall the EV industry doesn't get hit. Suma.
Yes, but overall EV industries, although like you mentioned, they will try to not get hit, but of course they will be probably getting hit somewhat and being affected by all this. Do you think this new approach by many countries, including the fact that US president has been so kind of discouraging green energy as well as electric vehicles and stuff like this, do you think it's going to shift the global market approach towards clean energy markets in coming year?
Yes, I think US approach, President Trump, he has not been very, very sensitive to the clean energy or the global environment, climate change. So to that extent, there have been reduced funding in this scope. And incidentally, yesterday only I was looking for replacing my current car, and I had gone to one of the showrooms, and there also they said that the EV market in India also is slowing down. The sales have actually really plummeted. So I think that globally somehow that EV bubble that we are looking at is actually not being realized. And I think all countries are looking at the fresh policies, because EV market has not actually grown as was expected. And as China, as I said, is the biggest EV manufacturer, biggest exporter, so they will have to actually take the long-term view of it, because in short term there is going to be definitely slump in the global market of the EV, and China being the major player will have to recalibrate.
Lastly, Major General, as you just mentioned, you have went to car showrooms in, I'm assuming if it was in India. Do you think Indian car manufacturing like Mahindra and the local production sites will also be keeping this in mind, and maybe they will shift a little bit from the EV heavy market?
Yes, absolutely. Though in the new policy of the government, they want to give a major thrust to the EV cars, the EV manufacturing, because as you are also in Delhi, the kind of AQI that we are facing, and one of the big pollutants are the vehicles policy. So therefore, government will be looking at it to have a greater number of EV vehicles on roads. But the point is the infrastructure has not kept up. Until you have the infrastructure in place, the EV growth story is only going to be glass half full. So I think the government has to take it in the various fields, that is production of own lithium batteries, not totally dependent upon China. At the same time, you have to create that kind of infrastructure, because at present people are not very confident of owning EV vehicles, primarily because of the charging and the infrastructure that has not come up. So I think that while EV is the future, but in immediate future, or immediate in terms of immediate time terms, hybrid are actually the ones which are making more sense than the purely EV vehicles. So I think all I can say is that EV market is in flux, and it's going to take some time before the EV market stabilizes. Asuma.
Very enlightening. With that, I would like to thank retired Major General G.G. Dwivedi for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Myanmar. Myanmar's general election today has saw low voter turnout as the country grapples with the civil war and ongoing political unrest. The election, the first since the 2021 military coup, is being heavily criticized for lacking credibility, with anti-junta political parties banned from running. The military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party is expected to win, further extending military control over the country. Despite international condemnation, the junta claims the election will bring stability to the troubled nation. The United Nations, Western countries, and human rights groups argue the polls are neither free nor fair, given the detention of Aung San Suu Kyi and the dissolution of her National League for Democracy. Early reports suggest voter turnout was much lower than the 2020 election, particularly in cities like Yangon and Mandalay. While security was tight in areas, rebel groups encouraged boycotts in conflict zones like Chin State. The election is part of a three-phase process that will conclude in January next year, but the junta's hopes for international legitimacy remain doubtful. Now we move on to tech. Amazon has announced today that it has decided to stop its plans for delivering goods by drone in Italy. Despite making progress with aerospace regulators, the company said broader business regulatory issues in the country were not supportive of the project. This decision comes after the company's December 2024 successful completion of initial tests in San Salvo, a town in central Abruzzo. The Italian Civil Aviation Authority called the move unexpected, linking it to Amazon's recent financial challenges. In its statement, Amazon has explained, despite positive engagement with Italian regulators, the broader regulatory framework in Italy does not support their long-term objectives for this program. The company has confirmed it will no longer pursue commercial drone deliveries in Italy. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.